Hello, I'm Samuel Boyd, and today I'm here with Travis Leischner. It's Monday, October 30th at 2:30 p.m. at the Ruth Patrick Science Education Center. How are you doing today, Travis?
I'm doing just fine.
All right, so we're just going to go through some basic information for everybody. So when and where were you born?
I was born in Edgefield, South Carolina, January 17, 1986.
Okay, and I'm assuming that's where you spent your entire childhood.
Yes, basically.
And what was that place like? Just small town, kind of?
Small town, nothing really fancy to do, so we kind of made our own extracurricular activities. So,
Right.
really hunting and fishing and those type of things.
And that was with your family, where you have a brother and a sister, I believe?
I have a much older brother, so he wasn't really around during our childhood, so it's really me and my sister.
Okay. And would she participate in the hunting and fishing as well?
No, she had her own little things she'd do, with
Oh, okay. So it's mostly, I guess, you and your dad, I suppose. Or...
Not really my dad so much. He wasn't really a fan of the hunting. He'd fish with me, but it was more on my mother's side of the family I did the hunting with. So.
Okay. Let's see. Now, you mentioned in the pre-interview that you've actually been to other colleges than USCA. When you went to high school, did you have any colleges in mind, or did you go to classes before enlisting? Or
the college that I did have in mind while I was still in high school was Lander. I was pretty set at that time from my best fit to my memory now. So it was a long time ago for me.
Yeah.
But I was pretty set on Lander until what happened during that time frame, and I totally changed my mindset. So
do you feel like any of your experiences before, terrorist attacks or anything, had you prepared to join the military, or was it just something you thought you had to do because of those?
So in high school, I was pretty set on going to college once I graduated. My teachers had me kind of in that mind frame, but it was 9/11 that happened that changed my whole outlook on what I wanted my future to be. I decided that I wanted to join the military once 9/11 happened, instead of going to college right out of high school, because I wanted to help out. Like I said before, I know that I couldn't make a difference by myself, but I wanted to contribute and help where I could. So I kind of put college on the back burner.
So how old were you when you enlisted?
I was 17.
And how did your friends and family, or how did they react to that? Were they supportive because they had the same kind of thing going on?
I remember I had one close friend growing up that I consider my best friend, and he was trying to join too at the time. My family was supportive, especially my dad, because he was retired Army, so he kind of, it was a no-brainer for him. Of course, he wanted me to join, and the rest of my family was overall supportive of my decision. So.
Were you like in a relationship at the time? Did you have anyone else that you had to think of when you were enlisting?
It wasn't a real serious thing. I was 17 years old, so it wasn't anything really serious. So.
Okay. Does any of your family have a background in military service, or do they just understand?
Just my father. He retired out of the Army, so he did 21 years of service in the military, in the Army. He definitely wanted me to join. He wanted me to do a career in the military, in the Army. But at the time when I joined, I was just 17. I wasn't really thinking about the future. So I was just really thinking for the moment what I wanted to do at that time frame. Wasn't really thinking long-term future. So of course my ideas, my plans changed. They evolved with the time.
So out of the 4 branches that you had the option to join, you joined the Army because that's what your father encouraged you to join, or was there some other factors that were involved in that as well?
There were some contributing factors. I actually looked at joining the Marines first, but it was the conversation that I had with the recruiters that turned me away from from the Marines. So I went to the Army. I liked the way they talked to me, the way they handled the situation, the way they showed me the options that I had. So I chose the Army.
So just the way they interacted with you, that just made you feel like the Army was a better fit.
The Marines really didn't give me any options. They didn't tell me what jobs I could or couldn't have. They just whipped out a contract and said, "You're ready to join the Marines." So I don't really have anything to go by here. I'm 17 years old.
Right.
You know, kind of walk me through this. They couldn't do that for me, but the Army could. So.
That being said, when you joined the Army, what were your authority figures like?
I guess they were strict. They were disciplined. You know, they were to the point. But I was used to that because of my dad, so I knew what it was like, per se, because of my dad growing up. You know, he was always strict and disciplined, and, you know, and to the point with things. So I was prepared for that, I guess you could say, in that manner.
So how would you describe your basic training, and where was it? Like, which fort was it at?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri was my basic training and my AIT. It was, you know, an experience that kind of helped shape me into who I am. I didn't find it really difficult. It was a little challenging. I enjoyed the time. I enjoyed everything that I learned there. It was really kind of the basic bare minimum that you learn in basic and AIT, and you learn and grow from there at your units. You know, more in-depth training and so on. So I found it enjoyable. I enjoyed the time there. I enjoyed what I learned. Enjoyed growing, you know, into the field that I was going into, a combat engineer. So I enjoyed the experience.
So how did like a day in basic training, how did that differ from what you would have done back home during that time period?
Well, definitely more structured. I wouldn't have gotten up at 4 or 5 in the morning on my own at home, you know. Although my dad wouldn't let me sleep in much. You know. As a teenager, he'd get me up, you know, fairly early every day. But in basic, you know, you get up at a very early time frame, 4 or 5 in the morning. You know, you do your PT, you do your physical training. From there, you'd eat your breakfast, and you'd get a little time to do hygiene, and from there you go on about the training during the day. Sometimes they'd bus you in, sometimes you'd walk there. You know, it didn't, I guess it all depended on what the training was for that day. Could be a few miles, you know, walk, or it could be a few miles bus ride. And from there you did your training, and then you'd go back and eat supper chow. You know, and there was always some smoke sessions in between all of that, you know, where they'd push you to muscle failure for some, you know, unknown reason. They'd claim one of your buddies did something wrong, and it would be, you know, mass punishment. So, but it taught you teamwork, you know, because if one person failed, everyone failed. So we all tried to bring the team up together. So it's basically a day in the life of a basic trainee.
So what do you think the hardest part of all that was?
At that time frame, I guess being a young guy, 17, I guess thinking for others, not just yourself. You know, you're really, when you're going into something like that, you're thinking, you know, I want to be the best. I want to show them that I can blow through this basic training in AIT, but they teach you teamwork. Like I said, you know, if one guy failed, you all failed. So you had to think collectively as a team. So I guess that would be the most difficult.
So do you think that helped you later on? Do you think that fundamentally changed how you interact with other people?
Well, building off of that, I think it definitely taught me teamwork, you know, not just think of myself. So, and I guess there are other aspects that it did teach me, but that one sticks out to me. Yeah.
So I guess you would kind of say you were prepared to go into basic training, but did you see a lot of other people change throughout basic training, and they came away very different than as they went in?
Yeah, it definitely challenged you as to what you think you can accomplish mentally and physically. Because there were people that wanted to quit, wanted to give up, that they didn't think they could push through their breaking point. But if you stick to it, you know, you can accomplish a lot more than you think you can, mentally and physically.
So where was the first place that you went for the military after your training?
Well, we went home for a little while. I did some more training, but I was called almost instantly called to serve overseas in Iraq. So I didn't get really much downtime. I went right overseas.
And where were you first stationed?
We went to Tikrit, Iraq, is where we went.
What unit were you in, and what was the specific reason that they told you as to why your unit was there?
Okay. Well, I was assigned to the 14th Engineers, which is the 101st Airborne Division. We were assigned to, like I said, Tikrit, Iraq, but we did missions all over the place. So I was very young then and didn't know much about anything. So it was an eye opener for me, into the real world. I wasn't really sheltered as a kid, but I mean, being that young, being thrown into a unit that's deploying right off the bat was a huge learning curve for me. I had mentioned previously that being so young, I kind of had opinions that weren't necessarily the truth. I thought that going overseas in that type of situation, everybody was your enemy. You did what your first line supervisor told you. But I look at things different now. But at that time frame, I assumed everybody was your enemy, and I was very serious about the mission, and accomplishing the objectives that we had. So that's how I looked at it.
So as you were over there and you progressed in your training, what different roles did you have to go through, and how did you have to change how you interacted with the situation as you did that?
That's a good question, because I did change roles throughout the tour that I was on. I started as a gunner and took that job very seriously, of course. Kind of evolved into truck commander and operating the specialty equipment that we're assigned to for route clearance. And while I was there, I was also trained on a small kill team, specifically sniper. So I was trained on that job as well. So I was very busy in my first tour, and very devoted to the mission and whatever my sergeant told me to do.
So obviously, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you have to take a lot of training and classes to get those certifications and go through those roles. How many classes would you say you took, or training sessions, I suppose, would it be to get those individually?
So as far as the equipment or the different positions like the truck commander, vehicle operator, those were more like on-the-job type training. So really, as we're going on the missions, you're really, train on the job type thing. As far as the sniper training was concerned, it was pretty intense training that we went through while in country, which was pretty unique about it. I'd say it was about a month long. So they break it down into course hours and all of that stuff, kind of similar to college, but it was pretty intense training for about a straight month. Different types of training that you go through for the certification.
So throughout the times that you were deployed, where all did you travel to? I mean, from what you can tell me at least.
I went to a good many different locations dealing with the deployments, but specifically doing missions. I did Iraq and Afghanistan, and all over both countries. So,
Where did you enjoy being deployed the most, and where was like the worst place? Not necessarily what you're doing, but just like the culture, the environment, all those things.
That is a good question. I would say it has to deal with my age and outlook at the time, because I was older for the second tour, going in Afghanistan. Had different outlook, different opinions of things. I definitely had more experience. So I tried to enjoy the culture more during that deployment. I definitely didn't look at everyone as the bad guy per se. I saw them as people that were just trying to live their lives in the middle of a war zone, because that's what they were. It was families. It was, husbands, wives, and children just trying to go about their everyday lives while this war was going on all around them. I wish I'd have saw that perspective while I was in Iraq. But that helped me grow as an individual, as a person. So I tried to take in the culture during the second tour. As far as you'd say the worst place.
Yeah.
Definitely a city that we had to go through in Iraq would have been the worst place. It's called Beizi, Iraq. I still remember. It was a very intense city. They hated American troops, so it was difficult going through that place, and we had to frequently.
So when you were over there and you being exposed to all those different perspectives and people, that it made you appreciate foreign cultures more or less than you thought you would have?
Definitely more. Definitely more. I would say it helped me open up as an individual, not to be so closed-minded, but to see other cultures and accept it,
So you're currently still serving the military, right?
Yes, I still serve in the reserves.
And what's your current rank?
I'm an E7, Sergeant First Class.
Okay. And since you've been promoted throughout this time, has your view on the military itself and what it's doing changed?
No, I don't think so. I believe in what we do and serving our great country, definitely. But my view on what it takes to be a leader has changed, I guess. I've had some great leaders along my career that have helped mentor me, and I've had some not so great leaders, that I've had to serve underneath. So I took the opportunity, serving underneath both variations of leaders, to be able to pick and choose what works and what doesn't work, and mold my leadership into what I wanted it to be based off of that.
So when you were over there, obviously, if someone above you is the person creating orders for you and everything, if you view them as a bad leader, how did that affect your interaction with them or the orders they provided? Were you allowed to have any different perspective on what they were telling you to do?
That's another good question. We did run into that type of situation during my first tour. We had a horrible platoon sergeant while we were serving overseas, and we had a very young lieutenant. And we were running on these life or death missions, and we figured out really quickly that we couldn't depend on the platoon sergeant. So there's processes that you can go through in your chain of command to kind of circumvent someone like that. But it's definitely something that you can't just revolt and do what you want. You have to follow the orders in the mission that you're given. But we did go through a process to circumvent that guy, because it was life or death missions that we were on, and he was going to get someone killed. So.
Right. So did you feel, at any point, did it kind of bother you to the extent that what you were there to do was determined by someone else, that you had to follow orders despite necessarily whether or not you agree with them? Was that something that you struggled with, or was that just, you thought you were there for a good purpose?
In the beginning, I did struggle with it because of the not so great leadership that were underneath. But we kind of all fell into a groove, into the purpose that we were there. Everyone just needed to see the purpose and what our mission was and how to accomplish that mission. And everyone had a specific job, right, from the platoon sergeant to the lieutenant, right down to the lower ranking guys like myself at the time. We just had to figure out what our job was and where our place was, and knock that mission out the best that we could.
So after you were done with your deployment and you came back stateside, what made you decide to take college classes and continue your education?
It would have been during my second tour. I don't know what struck me, but I started thinking about the future a little more. Because the younger me was just thinking about the moment, you know. I never really thought about the future. Not even signing a 6-year contract, you know, I didn't even put any thought at the time to, this is 6 years of my life. I was just thinking for the moment. But during my last tour, I started thinking about the future more, what I wanted for myself, family, and that type of thing. And I knew that I needed to get an education. I needed to get a higher education, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. And I didn't really know at the time what I wanted my major to be. I just knew that I needed to get this, you know, to further my education. So I talked to a couple other buddies that you know were deployed with me, and some of them were taking college classes already, and kind of got an idea of what it was like and the path. So when I came home, you know, I went and registered to what I thought my major would be, but here I am now, 3 major changes later. So now I've got a pretty good idea what I want to do, you know, and I'm pretty close to graduation. May I'll graduate. I have a ton of credit hours that don't go towards this major, but I don't regret that because it's helped me figure out where I want to be and what I want my future path to be.
So you mentioned before that the sniper training was actually broken down to course hours, things like that. How would you say that the classes and type of training done by the military differs from classes that you would take at USC-Aiken?
How would it differ?
Right, like how would the teachers be different, the students, the type of curriculum, the view on it, anything that just strikes you as the environment was different?
Well, military training or courses are definitely more disciplined, you know, more structured. I guess in the civilian world, when you're going to college, it's up to you. You're an adult, and it's up to you whether you show up, you know, take these courses and do your part. Whereas, excuse me, if in the military, if you're assigned to this course, well then you're going to have a leader that forces you to go, forces you to train, forces you to study. Like, it's all structured, you know. You're more likely to fail in the civilian world than in the military courses because it's so structured and disciplined. So once you step out from the military world into civilian, you have to have some discipline, you know, some what I call want to, you know. You know, in the civilian world, you have to have, you know, your goals and your ideas of what you want, because there's no one there pushing you like there is in the military world.
So which environment do you think is better at encouraging learning and having success in those courses? Do you think it's better to be forced to do those things, or?
I wouldn't call one better than the other. As far as my life, having gone through both, I appreciate the military style because I think it helped shape me into the man I am. It definitely taught me the discipline that I needed to be where I am now. You know, I like to think that I'm disciplined enough that I push myself to study when I should and focus on the material and, you know, meet deadlines and that type of thing. Thanks to the military training and courses that I've been through. So I think they build off one another for me. I can't speak to others who may have been through one versus the other. But it's definitely helped me in my path.
So I'm kind of curious how different a classroom looks between one in the military and one at USC-Aiken. Did you still have people falling asleep, or were there people walking around? Like, what was the general vibe of the room, kind
of? Okay, so in a military-style classroom, you know, you have an instructor, and there may be some assistant instructors in that setting. There's no one falling asleep in those type classes because, you know, there'll be someone there to scream or holler at you or take you out and you do some exercises until you reach muscle failure, or if you fall asleep, they could dump the canteen on top of you. so it's, you're soaking wet in there. It's that type of environment. It's definitely more structured to keep you focused on the material. Whereas, in this type of environment, it's all up to you. If you fall asleep, well then that's on you. You're missing the material and you're falling behind, but it's on you.
So after all of your training and your final major that you did decide on, was your final major more influenced by your home life or your military service? Which of those things kind of had more of an impact?
I would say it would go back to my high school years. The material that I was studying and focused on then, I was in some calculus classes, some physics classes, and specifically my physics teacher at the time opened my eyes to engineering. I didn't really know much at the time, being a 15, 16-year-old, and she opened my eyes to what engineering was, based off my fondness of the physics. She said, I think you'd make a great mechanical engineer. If you went to the engineering world, your mind's built this way, and you would really like it. So I kind of had an idea back then, before my ideas changed. But it was always on the back burner that this could be a career for me. So when I went back to school, I really thought that I didn't have what it took to be an engineer. Jumping back into school. So I chose a simple, major, and I hated it. It was boring. And I changed my major from there to another major that was more exciting, but the job field was shrinking. It was a nuclear energy technology type degree, and the job field just was shrinking at the time. I was worried about career-wise where it would take me. So during my last tour, I decided to man up and really go after what I wanted to do, which was engineering. So I came home and I did that. Here I am, one semester away from graduating, and I'm proud of myself and how hard I've pushed through, and I guess that I can be an engineer.
Congratulations, that's impressive. So when you were actually first joined, you knew that you had an affinity for physics. Is that how you ended up with the particular jobs that you had overseas? Were you given an option, is really my question, or was it just happenstance that you got put in a job that you had an affinity for?
As far as my jobs in the military?
Yeah.
Okay. There was really no choice that I had, per se, like I want to do this and not that. It was really just my performance as an individual that kind of set me above the rest, I guess. I really gave it 100% of my effort, no matter what job I was given. My dad and my grandpa taught me that as well. Whatever job you're given, you do it 100% of your effort. Do the best that you can. So I just followed that, philosophy. So I kind of progressed through the ranks and through the job positions based off of that, I would say.
So that's obviously transferred over into your civilian life. I've noticed that you're part of the student veteran center here at USC-Aiken. What made you decide to represent the veterans and help others along with their college experience as well? Was it that 100% thing, or that you just felt the need to help other people as well?
That kind of goes back to when I first came here to the college. There's a little organization here called it's VMSS Center, the Veteran and Military Student Success Center. They're here to help veterans and military affiliated members weed through the bureaucracy of the paperwork with the benefits that they're offered. And they helped me when I was here. When I first came here, I had no idea about all this paperwork, what to do, where to go, and they helped me through the whole process. Made it so much simpler and easy for me. So, long story short, I wanted to be a part of that organization and help, and so I applied and helped through that center for about a year, a little over a year, until I moved on to an internship/co-op position. So I've been working that for a little while, and the director of the VMSS Center came to me and said the senator position was open. I'd be able to continue the path of helping veterans and military affiliated members through this position. So he kind of threw that idea out there for me and let me stew on it, and I decided that I wanted to, if I could, I wanted to keep helping where I could. So I decided to accept a position, and here I am.
So on a slight change of note, what's your current family developed to be like?
I have 3 children. I'm divorced, and my children are my world, of course, for me anyways. I am pretty busy, so I'm a full-time student. I also work in an engineering firm about 20 to 30 hours a week. I'm working on a capstone project, senior capstone project that takes about 10 hours per week. Still serving in the reserves, and I'm on the SGA, so I stay pretty busy. But I'm focused. I try to accomplish, every little task that I'm given. But I guess my main objective is to spend as much time with my children as I can. And the whole reason I'm doing all of this is to better myself for my family.
So do you think you can attribute your ability to deal with these schedules all the way back to how your dad raised you and taught you, and then you went into the military and gained those skills to do that?
Oh, man, I'd say most definitely. I don't think that I could be able to juggle such a high-stress environment without the training that the military put me through. And my dad definitely put me through some stressful times growing up, I'd say. He kind of prepared me for what I was going to be put through in the military, and at least that mindset anyways. So the training and the path that I chose through the military surely taught me how to handle highly stressed environments, and how to multitask. So I'd say without that, I don't know that I could be successful in this type of environment, given the workload that I have.
So just a personal curiosity question. Do you think that most civilians would benefit from that type of discipline and training that you received in the military? Is that something that you think most people should have available to them, that type of training?
I don't know that the military per se would be for everyone, but definitely how to multitask and how to handle stressful environments. I think everyone could benefit from that, because people are, most everyone you meet, is stressed out in some way or another, and to be able to handle or cope through that, or know that I've been pushed to my breaking point many times before. I can handle this. I can push through this. I can power through this. Would benefit everyone.
Now, I was going to ask you what you see yourself doing in 5 years, but I thought of a more interesting question, in my opinion. You obviously don't have a lot of free time right now, so if you intend to retire and you do get around to doing it, what are you going to do when you have all that free time? What do you think you're going to do for your hobbies, take up your time with?
So, I have put some thought into this, being able to reach a point where I can retire and kind of slow the pace a little bit. I know that I want to, hobby-wise, I'd want to hunt and fish. My children will be grown by then and doing their own thing, probably, a family of their own. But I've thought about having a side business, operating a side business. I've juggled a few ideas as to what that business would be, but haven't, come up with a firm idea yet. So I'm thinking that,
So your version of slowing down is run a business, have family time, and hunt and fish.
Yeah.
That's still more busy than most people. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add or say before we wrap it up? Or?
No, I think it's been a pretty thorough interview.
All right. Well, thank you for giving your time to me again, Travis, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.